everyone, Whitney McFly here again, and of course we are back in the Back to the Future room. Now this week I am going to be concentrating on the DeLorean, of course, which is, the main focus of the entire space. I'm really excited about it because I have not ever had to build a vehicle like this, but we're going to do a little bit of an illusion because I'm also not a model car maker. So you'll see what I'm talking about here shortly. Okay, so in the scene we've been working on, right here, when Marty and Doc are talking, there's a knock at the door and it is Lorraine. The two freak out and they grab a tarp and they hide the whole front end of the DeLorean. That is going to save me in today's build because I'm going to be able to basically build the DeLorean, showcasing the most iconic part of the DeLorean, which is in the back, but also be able to hide the whole front and just give the illusion that the whole car is sitting underneath the tarp. So here I have a 1/24th scale DeLorean, and this is actually from Back to the Future 2, where Doc uses the Mr. Fusion. I am creating the Back to the Future 1 DeLorean, so it's going to be a little bit different. So I'll use this as a reference point, but I won't be trying to do a replica of this one because it's the wrong version. I had considered a lot of different ways to go about this, and I thought about all these different ways to do it, but then ultimately what I decided to do was make a scaled model of it using some trash foam. I use trash foam a lot, and I don't know if I explain it in every video what it is, but it's basically just how it sounds. It is foam that typically comes in a package that you might buy, whether it's an appliance or really anything else that you would need foam, and instead of throwing away, I'm going to use it to make the DeLorean. This foam came out of a box that we had purchased some lights in for the garage. So what I'm going to do is glue those two pieces of foam together. So basically when I was doing the research for the DeLorean, trying to find the correct measurements, I did find some vector drawings of it with the measurements. Basically, it came out to be about 13 inches long, about 4 inches tall, and 6 inches wide, which was perfect for the amount of space that I have in the dollhouse. The easiest thing that I found to do was to go ahead and print out the drawing, glue it to a thin piece of cardboard, and then cut that out. And then that gave me basically this really great stencil to use to cut out the foam. And then I did glue them to either side of my foam. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my foam cutter to give me the right shape of the DeLorean. And what's really great, because a foam cutter can be very difficult to use, and I'm no pro at it. And in order for me to get this really nice smooth cut, being able to slightly guide my foam cutter across the top of the cardboard just really allowed me to get a nice smooth cut from the foam instead of accidentally making big gouges. And I really did take my time. Once that's all nice and cut out, I'm taking a permanent marker and I'm drawing out the back area so that I know where now to cut with my foam cutter. You can see here the back area does have some additional, the windows, I need to cut those out in the back. I'm going to go ahead and cut that out using the foam cutter, the longer arm. And I'm just going to take my time because obviously I haven't done this before. I really do want to do a pretty decent job, obviously, knowing that I'm going to make some mistakes along the way and learn from them. After I got that all cut out, honestly, it was looking pretty good. I could see where there was some unevenness in the way I cut the foam, but overall, I think that I can make it work. The other thing is that the two side windows on the back area, they do really come more at a slant, which I have not accomplished with the way I have cut this foam. So I am going to attempt to do that. Honestly, right off the bat, I took too much off both sides. And immediately I was pretty disappointed because I felt like up to this point I had done a really good job on cutting the foam. So I'm going to just leave it as is. I'm not going to start over in this case, but I may add some clay or other fillers to kind of build that section up again. Okay, now to begin with the painting, I'm going to do a couple different coats of a couple different colors. Silver, of course, will be one of the main coats on the outside and some parts on the inside of the DeLorean. And then I'm going to do the whole interior black to start with. And this is going to take a lot of paint because, of course, it is foam and it is porous. Now, I don't know if I'll ever build another DeLorean. However, this was a good learning experience for me. And what I learned is that if I do another DeLorean, prior to painting, I would actually coat this entire back end of the vehicle in like a very light plaster or joint compound, or maybe even a very light paper clay, and let it fully dry. That is going to give me a much smoother surface, a less porous surface, and I think ultimately the car would have looked better in the end if I did it. But hey, this is my first go with a foam car, but certainly that is a lesson learned and a takeaway from this build for me. All right, and then once those coats are dry, I started off with just like regular silver, but then I did add an additional metallic titanium color to kind of get the look of the DeLorean finish. And I painted the faux wheels black, and then you can kind of see where some of that foam is a little thin. Again, I'm gonna try to fill that in with some other materials here in a little while. Now, one of the main, obviously, focuses of the whole vehicle is gonna be the back area. I mean, that's the iconic portion of the DeLorean besides the lift up doors, which we will not even really focus on. But here is a actual DeLorean that someone recreated. I don't think that this is the true one from the movie, but there are a lot of people who, of course, transform their regular DeLoreans into the Back to the Future DeLorean. So some of the materials I'll be using today will be this air dried clay. The parts that I'm going to use for the clay are basically any part that I don't feel like I could mimic with other materials that I have. And then a couple things that I've created with the clay is the flux bands, which are kind of what lights up on the car. I created the nuclear reactor portion of it, which is that big wheel looking thing. And then I've also started a portion of the pulse generator, but I didn't really do a complete one because it's going to be mostly covered by the tarp. For the other parts that we're seeing, I'm going to use a myriad of different things. Fluxy straws are in different shades of gray and then black. I also have some colored straws, and then these small wires in all sorts of colors, and of course in the main colors that we see in the movie. And then I'm also going to be using springs. I thought that would be really fun, and I'll paint these. And any of the metal pieces that I'm painting, I'm just going to be using my tester's paints. Okay, and you can see how I have painted them, painted as I've gone, added this different straws, added the wiring, and then added that aqua color just around the light band to kind of give it the look that we see in the movie. I pre-made a hole into the clay, and that's where we're going to put what I'm calling the lightning rod that we see coming out of the DeLorean. And then for that rod, I have just cut down a wire hanger. I wrapped more of my wires around it, and then I used duct tape to hold it in place. And I did add a little bit of glue as well to keep it in place. Now for the reactor cooling vents, which are those big black boxes that you see on the back. For those, I just used some foam board and cardstock, cut them down, glued them together, and painted them black. The tarp was a very easy process. I just found a piece of canvas material and I just used a glue and paint mixture. Heavy on the glue, I used an elephant gray colored paint, mixed that all together, and then I just lathered it on the tarp. I did add a little glue underneath to just allow that canvas initially to adhere. And then I just tried to create a couple folds into the tarp to make it look a little bit more realistic. The other tiny detail that I also included was I took a little bit more foam board and I just glued it just up underneath the tarp where the rear view mirrors would be hanging off of the vehicle. Again, give it more of a realistic vibe. And then I just left it alone to dry. Of course, the only other thing that I wanted to add that I absolutely needed is the out of time license plate, which is super easy because you can find them all over the internet. So I just printed up the right scale. I glued that down to a piece of cardstock to create a little bit more of a sturdy plate. I added a little bit of Mod Podge to it just for longevity, and then I glued that to my car. And we're basically finished aside from needing to put it inside the room. So I've got a couple other little pieces that are already sitting inside. You can see that clearly the room has not been touched since the last time I showed the room, but we will accomplish that. I'm completely confident. It's just a matter of time. If only I had a machine where I could go back in time to give myself the ability to create this before this video comes out. No, obviously I can't do that, but I wish. That's really it for this week, you guys. I know it's a shorter video, and I'm trying to get to the point where I can start creating the longer, at least one long start to finish video for you once a month, which, by the way, I do have a great collaboration coming up. My goal was to have that completed by June 1st, and I'm still pushing forward for that. I need to make sure that my collaborating partner is still okay with June 1st as well. For those of you who want to stick around and listen about the time I met Christopher Lloyd, that's coming up. And for everyone else, I hope that you have a great week, and I'll see you soon. Bye! All right, so here's the story about me meeting Christopher Lloyd. So basically what happened is I live, of course, out in Ventura, California, and so there are plenty of opportunities to go places and see your favorite movie stars from all your favorite movies. So my friends and I went to a Hollywood show where they were featuring several of the cast members from Back to the Future. Of course, Christopher Lloyd was there, and other headliners like Leah Thompson, who played Lorraine, and then Thomas Wilson, who played Biff in the movie. Being on a budget, I really could only choose one of the three to get the signature from, and so I chose Christopher Lloyd. And I was very excited. The line was quite long. I was with several friends, and we finally get up to the front. Now, we're not fully aware of the cost that it would be to have them sign items that you're bringing in. And I find out that it is quite a bit more than what I had anticipated. And so being frugal, let's say, I decided to kind of make a little bit of a scene when I found out what they wanted for him to sign my car, which was actually also a lot more than they wanted if you just didn't have anything for him to sign and you just chose like an autograph or something. And my argument was that his hand movement would be the same regardless of what he was signing on. And so my friend jumps in, and he, probably out of sheer embarrassment and being completely horrified, steps in and he paid the difference. Okay, I did pay him back for that same day, but I was just in the moment kind of upset about it. So anyway, then we get back in the line, and I'm waiting, and then it's about to be my turn for me to have him sign. And then each actor in these situations kind of have their handlers that help them and kind of guide the lines and the audience members. And they stopped us right as it was my turn and said, Christopher is going to eat lunch. And so I don't know why I imagined that they would be bringing him in just like a really, I don't know, fancy lunch or something. I don't know why that was like in my mind, but they just brought him like a styrofoam to go, little box with, a little latch and just opened. I mean, very regular person was what I'm saying. And he had a regular sandwich with like a little bag of chips. And so the other thing I thought they would do is have him move so he could go eat in peace, basically, but they didn't. They just had him eating his sandwich. So I found that I'm just standing there in this awkwardness watching Christopher Lloyd eat a sandwich with my friends, and we're all looking at each other like this is super weird. And so we just all turned our back, which also was probably weird, but we were trying to be respectful and give him like a moment. But then it was like all his fans are like just standing there with their back turned. So it was very weird, really bizarre. It took some time, of course, for him to eat. And then once he did, it was my turn to get my car signed. And I was incredibly excited. And I'm going to give him some grace and mercy here, because I know it was a really long day for him. He is, not a spring chicken by any means at this point. And so he basically just took the car, signed it, pushed it to the side, and then that was that. And so I don't think he even looked up, to be honest. Okay, that's okay. I'm not saying anything negative about him. Again, probably a long day for him. But it was just hilarious. I made a scene. I watched him have a sandwich, and got my car signed, got a few pics on the side, which I'm sure I've been posting while I'm telling the story, and that was that. So the time I met Christopher Lloyd, eventful, yet not.